Forced to work from home by your employer? Laid off or feeling depressed at home? Do you want to make money working from anywhere? We'll show you how to do it from your couch. It's time for another episode of the Work From Home Show. Coming to you from their homes in Austin, Texas and Tampa, Florida, here are your hosts, Adam and Naresh.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Work From Home Show. I'm your host, Naresh, with Adam Schrader, and we have on the line with us another awesome guest. He's a celebrity guest, big celebrity in India. His name is Dr. Ajaikumar. He is the founder, chairman, and CEO of Healthcare Global Enterprises. If you live in India, and we actually do have some work from homers who listen to our show from India, and this is not a household name, but a very well-known company, Healthcare Global Enterprises. And he's also author of the best-selling book, Excellence Has No Borders, How a Doctorpreneur Created a World-Class Cancer Hospital Chain. And I agree that excellence has no borders. This is not specific to India. It's not specific to the United States of America. It's not specific to working in a cubicle. It's not specific to working at home. There are no borders when it comes to excellence. So we thought, let's bring on a celebrity doctor on our show so he can help our listeners pursue and attain excellence. So Dr. Ajaikumar, welcome to the Work From Home Show.
Thank you very much, Naresh. Thank you for having me, Adam.
Yeah. And where in India are you located?
Bangalore, India.
Okay, so that's the southern portion, which I'm also from, meaning my parents are from the South India as well. Not Bangalore, though. My mother's from Hyderabad. She's there right now, actually. And my father's from Chennai.
Wow, okay. Very interesting.
Yeah. So let's start the discussion by talking about your story and your journey, because it really is quite fascinating.
Thank you. So I'm an oncologist, and when I went through medical school in India, I was always felt challenged by the various issues, not only medical issues, but also social issues in India. Growing up in the 60s and 70s, I saw a lot of, as every young man, my idealism is always there. What can I contribute to the country? What can I do? But as I went through one of the top medical schools in Bangalore called St. John's, I realized that, the technology, the professional satisfaction in India to get at that time was difficult. So I was hunger for more knowledge. That is why I immigrated to US in 1975 with an idea that someday I will like to move to India. But I was fortunate enough, after my first year in the University of Virginia, I got exposed to cancer patients. Even though I wanted to do cardiology, everybody, the fascination was for subjects like cardiology, and oncology was very difficult subject at that time because there were no definitive treatment. When you get cancer, people felt it was like a death sentence. And a lot of measures was for pain control, management, what we call as palliation. But my internship in University of Virginia, I thought, why does anybody get cancer? It is something which happens internally. Why is there is no treatment? Why the body doesn't react to it? So these were the questions I had. That is why, I applied to the MD Anderson Hospital. I think Adam probably knows that in Houston, Texas, where it was considered the destination for cancer care in the country at that time.
I should just say, Dr. Ajaikumar, both Adam and I are very familiar with the medical center. I am born and raised in Houston, and Adam's wife.
Okay.
I think Adam's wife might have worked. Did your wife work at MD Anderson at all, Adam?
She rounded there whenever she was in her CRNA school, but she didn't actually. She never worked there.
Okay, so she rounded there. So we're both very familiar with
Okay.
MD Anderson and the amazing med center that Houston
Yeah.
has in general.
And the funny thing was, I didn't know much about MD Anderson. I was just talking to my professor at University of Virginia. I said, I want to go to the place. And I remember he was smoking a pipe, standing in the hallway. He said, he jokingly, I think he said, who knows, apply to MD Anderson, you may get it. So I took it seriously. At those days, there were no emails, obviously nothing like that. I just wrote a long letter. And I got a note from MD Anderson saying they don't have any position till 1978. This was in 75. But if you want to come down, we will interview you for 1978. So I took a holiday, like a few days off, and Greyhound bus. I traveled across south. It was an interesting experience going through various towns in Alabama, South Carolina, Alabama, New Orleans, and I know at one time somebody stopped me near the bus station. We are some US immigration. We want to check you. I was so shocked. I said, what? Then I showed my green card and told who I was. They said, sorry, doctor, there are a lot of illegal people here. So, it was kind of a, journey through places where people walked with guns and came to the Dairy Queen with, the cowboy hats. So anyway, it was a journey experience for me. So when I landed in Houston, it was like, okay, some cosmopolitan town. But to make it short, MD Anderson interviewed me for 3 days. But the head of the residency program came to me afterwards. I wanted to do a PhD also because I was so interested in research. She said, we are so impressed with you, we're going to take you right away. And they offered me even a higher salary than what I made. It was called stipend, like a fellowship program. But immediately I jumped it, even though my professor in University of Virginia was very, very unhappy. I moved there, and that was a game changer for me. Going through not only radiation oncology, I decided to do medical oncology in a program called developmental therapeutics, where a lot of research is done, phase 1 trials, phase 2 trials, seeing people coming from all over the world, like experiment with my body. It's okay, using very toxic drug. But in the end of 4 years, I had it. I said, man, I don't know whether I want to really do this rest of my life. Even though they offered me a good post to be head of lung program because I was dual trained, I said, I trained under some giants of oncology. I said, no, I want to start on my own, learn the ropes of starting cancer centers. So someday in India, I would like to do. So in 1979, I started a center from scratch, about 3 hours west of Chicago. Somehow I wanted to start in a smaller area to learn. And this was, like a, literally like 100% white community. I was one of the first foreign doctor, practicing there. And it was a great experience. In few years, people came from 100-mile radius. I got so busy. I used to see 150 patients a day, 60, 70 inpatient, 60, 70 outpatient. So I got partners. But while I was doing that, when I got partners, I never forgot my moral commitment. I thought to India to do something. I started, coming to India, spending 3 months, 2 months. With my partner, I had an arrangement. But that was another great experience. While MD Anderson was a great game changer, the next was really to coming to India and understanding the India, traveled across India. I took off 6 months in mid-80s and traveled across all the cancer centers. To be honest, I was really shocked by the great unmet demand, the difference between the technology, cobalt therapy still being used, people waiting for 10, 12 hours. A child, I remember waiting for 10, 12 hours to get cobalt treatment in the middle of the night. So I thought, you know what, really the government cannot do all this. It has to be people like us who are trained, private enterprise, we have to enter. So that is when I started looking at starting a first non-profit hospital in Mysore. But very quickly I realized non-profit is okay, you can do one hospital, but you cannot really create a thing which is a game changer for the entire country. So that is In 1990s, I started the first private hospital in Bangalore, and from that, with a group of doctors, I began to learn the nuances of the Indian oncology, the people, how do they respond when people cannot afford, what happens, what are the social issues. I also started a women empowerment program near Mysore to understand the rural India. So one of the things I learned when I started writing the book was I learned from grassroots level, the rural India, because I spent time. Whenever I came to India like a madman, I used to run around, spend all my time doing rural camps, understanding the women issues, talking to them. I wrote a project with World Bank. That gave me some deep insight into the real India. At the same time, looked at the cancer scenario, like cancer cervix, head and neck cancer. So, it became a combination of social issues, medical issues, and how do you address it, the economic issues. In a way, they are all tied together. One of the things I learned from rural women is, if I have to get good health and education to my family and me, economics is important. We have to improve. That is why I started the Women Empowerment Microcredit Program. With all that, in 2000, when you fast forward to 2002, 3, I had moved to Boston. As you will see in the book, I had uh, accumulated some good wealth, but in the great bubble, I literally lost everything. Uh, and that was another issue, like, my God, I was a nice house on the beach. And then one day I started walking the beach at 2 o'clock, and I said, you know what? I lost everything. What are my commitments to it? I have done so many things. I had a vision. All of them have gone kaput now. Everything is gone. Should I just keep on walking in the ocean, or should I return and take it as a challenge? Obviously, I returned back to the house. Woke up my wife at 2 o'clock in the night, and said, you know what? I want to go back to India. Sell this house. It was like a $3 million house. Fortunately, I got to sell it very quickly at that time. That was in 2001. And moved, and my wife was doing her master's in art. She continued. We just had twins also. We had 4 kids, but twins were just born then. So I started my preparations to India then. And it has been a great journey. In 2003, 4, my wife moved to Chicago Art Institute. So we got a condo there, and then I started my work in India. And sometimes I feel the best thing I've done in my life is, one, move to US in 1975 and move back to India in 2003, 4. But that is where my journey started. And when I looked at why is it, excellence is no borders, I was well accepted in US. People came from all over, even though I was the first Indian doctor to practice there and all that. So really, if you're good, everybody will accept it. That was what I felt. And when I came back to India, I said rural, cosmopolitan, city, poor. Cancer doesn't know all that. Cancer only knows one thing, cancer. It doesn't know you're poor, I will not be very vicious on you. You are rich, I will deal you in a different way. So I wanted to bring uniformity of care. And people were obviously very negative. All the people said it's an impossible task. I said nothing is impossible. Challenges are there for you to take on. That is how people have climbed Mount Everest. People have achieved something called unachievable. That is how the progress has been in the society. So I took upon it and created a hub and spoke model. Fortunately, I got a private equity fund. I didn't know what is private equity. I was a doctor, but started, putting a plan together with people in 2005, 6, when we got the first funding, from infrastructure fund. I was amazed, $10 million we got. And we really executed it very well to establish a number of centers, about 8 centers across India. You putting in high technology. And, in early 2000, the interest rates in India were like 20%. So we couldn't borrow much, and I had to go and meet, I remember, Siemens board in Germany. Tell them, look, I need funding. I said, how can we give you, we don't know anything about you. I said, this is what my grand plan is, you have to help. So they gave, I remember, $8 million at a 3% interest rate with no other conditions. And it was amazing. That was another a learning curve for me. How, and even in US, I should really say, when I started the foundation in US for my nonprofit, US Internal Revenue Service gave me tax exemption from. I didn't go and ask anybody any money. I did on my own. I could donate 50% of my income to that for a building center in India. And my lawyer said, I don't know whether they'll approve. Let us see. He did pro bono work, and it was long behold, they said, okay, you can do it in India. So that was another, really great. I felt here is a country which allows me to do something in India and gives me tax exemption in US. Even today, I have that exemption, even though, people have looked at it and said, finally, they have agreed every time they audit. So all of this rich experience I've had, and today HCG has grown to 30 centers with 25 oncology centers. We have a technology lab called STAND, where we do a lot of genomic work, and 45 PhDs work. And we are in the forefront of not only treatment but research using a hub and spoke model. We have centers in Africa. We have a major center of excellence in Bangalore, written by Harvard Business School as 5 times in a row as a case study, where I go and give lectures. Last year, of course, this March I gave it through video conferencing. And Harvard Review called us the best value healthcare provider, which means our data in breast cancer is equal to best of centers in the world, but at a much less cost. That's the value of healthcare provider we are. So all of that, the review published it. So with all that, IFC, did a publication through Amsterdam Independent Group. So we are known as high quality, patient centric, high technology, but at a much lesser cost without compromising. And we are in research, academics. So all of that has been fulfilling, but I know that is the reason when we went public in 2016, we listed, I thought this is the time for me to take my pen and start putting together the whole journey and do this book called, Excellence Has No Borders. My son-in-law, who is American, he has also moved, my daughter. They were all born in US, all my kids. My daughter, Anjali, did her MBA from Babson, Boston. Both her husband also, they moved, Eric. And he suggested that name. And he helped me with the cover. So that is how the first book has come. So I am still on my journey. We will see what next. But this has been my experience with India, with the rural India, the urban India, understanding the people, understanding the psychology of the cancer patients in India versus US, what I call as onco-philosophy, has been a great journey for me. And this is, in a nutshell, is what I have put out in the book.
Wow. So how do you ensure, as you're building out your, I'm going to call it your medical empire, from the sound of it, how do you ensure as you go around that each of the facilities that you're opening, like how do you manage them and make sure that they're giving the quality of care that, you want every patient to receive?
Yeah, good question, Naresh. I think what we do is, because we have technology, we use the HIS system. We work with a company called Electa, which is a Swiss company, co-developed EMR. All of this, and we use virtual tumor boards. In fact, Tuesday is my whole day clinical day, where all the centers beamed into our Bangalore center. So we discuss cases, recurrent cases, complicated cases, and we audit mortality. So through means of auditing and publishing the data of each center, and every 2 years we meet to compare the outcome of each center across India to see does it equal to the global standards, that is equal to our Bangalore center, and is the training done. So constant training, constant what we call as tumor boards, constant link up with complicated cases. And we have, obviously each center has an administrator, a medical director, my oncologists. We have a large training program for oncologists, nearly 120 oncologists and related specialties train every year. With all this, as you said, quality is the main thing for us. When you look at MD Anderson, Why there are not multiple MD Anderson? Because, it is very difficult to get that same quality. So that was my challenge. Can I create actual comprehensive centers? We are the only one in the world where under one network there are so many comprehensive cancer centers. Many are like daycare centers, daycare radiation center, but they don't have actual hospitals. Whereas we actually have the 25 actual comprehensive centers, fully loaded with PET scans, linear accelerators, operating room, surgical suite, all of that. And oncologists, we have 400 plus oncologists in our group. So the whole idea is, in India, people cannot travel. Accessible and affordable is our theme. Where people be able to go to the nearest center and get the same quality of care as the big centers do, so centers of excellence do, through dissemination of information. And the technology is very important. And I always feel with the genomics coming and all, in the future, HCG more than a hospital will be a technology company, because collecting the data, auditing the data, looking at the cancer genomic data, understanding why some patient fails, why somebody responds, and these are the important information we'll be getting to know how to treat the patient the right way the first time they come. And that is what we are trying to bring across all these centers. We see nearly 100,000 new cancer patients a year, one of the largest in the world. So for us, the challenge is, you are absolutely right. How do you make sure the quality of care is the same across? And that is why we have a large team called Eagle Eye. All of that, the role is to watch like a hawk to make sure everybody is treated the way. But it's still a work in progress. And obviously, this work in progress is going to go on for several years.
You just touched on technology and how technology is going to play a major role in healthcare and medicine. And we've actually interviewed several doctors on our show because the whole work from home concept is starting to hit medicine. And so I'm curious to know, do you think more doctors, or what's your prediction as to whether more doctors will have positions where they can work from home and still provide good, I guess, digital bedside manner and quality of care?
Yeah, I will give you two instances in this. In the book also I've written, I am a firm believer in high technology. In fact, yesterday all my 15 patients I did through Microsoft Teams. We are well networked and we beam into their house. Patients cannot come, give them, and obviously if they require treatment, they have to come. Otherwise, we have a home care service. We send the nurse home and monitor them and do all the things at home using technology. But one of the things which happened to my own life, which I've written in the book in the first chapter itself, is my son has a very bad disease called Duchenne muscular dystrophy. In fact, if I can take a minute, I'll explain. When he was born and at the age of 4, we diagnosed in 1994, he was told he will not live beyond 15 years because at universities across US, I took him to Montreal, started funded a program, a fellowship program there for genetics, for gene therapy. But it never happened, and even today there is no definitive treatment. But I started him on some medicines, some of the things, discussion with prominent doctors. And today is 30 years alive. And, even though he's in a wheelchair, he's done his master's in psychology. He writes a lot of things. He's a great friend and collaborated with me for a lot of things. Even in this book, he kind of edited a lot of things and helped me a lot. But in 3 years ago, he had a fall for, unfortunately, somebody lifting for his bath and fell, broke a lot of bones and went into septic shock. And we thought we are going to lose. I rushed back from US. But, when he was in ICU, there were a lot of immune problems because they were on steroids for a long time. He was going to repeated shock. So I moved him home. And in fact, in British Medical Journal, we wrote this article, How Do You Manage Intensive Care from Home? He was on a ventilator at home for 6 weeks after tracheostomy and complete cameras monitoring him every day and night, looking at his blood pressure, doctors able from remote area managing him so we avoided complete sepsis. He was like a bubble baby. All of that, and he came out of it. He had multi-organ failure. He came out of it, and I think that was another great learning. I think future will be virtual hospitals, Naresh. Future will be virtual hospitals. We will be able to do rounds, monitor everywhere through technology, and and even get a lot of information back from technology just using some of these gadgets. So I do believe that is great for the patients, because the hospital-induced sepsis, a lot of people come okay to hospital, but if you stay beyond 3-4 years, 3-4 days, they get hospital-induced infection, which again is very difficult to treat, pneumonias. So I think you are absolutely right. It will be virtual rounds. It will be the technology will be used to manage a majority of the hospitals. Of course, for certain things like linear accelerators, surgery, they may have to still come, but we will see a lot more empty beds, lot more empty parking lots, but more like a distant treatment, home care services. I am pretty sure that will be the future of medical care.
Do you think it's possible as we move forward with the care and with more teledocs going on, that there could kind of be almost like a worldwide certification? Because I know a big thing right now is you have every country has their own requirements for what it takes to become this type of doctor, that kind of doctor. Do you think we could get to the point where there's kind of just like a one kind of guideline of what you need to do, and then you've got doctors in India treating people in America and people in America treating people in other places, and kind of making it almost like one big collaboration?
Yeah, it is already happening. Already happening, because we all follow various protocols in cancer care called NCAN guidelines, WHO guidelines. So a lot of these are already in. I think what we need is organization like WHO to be more stronger to implement it. See, the issue is when when it is only American guideline or a European guideline, how do you make sure across the world it is implemented? That becomes a little bit difficult. But as doctors who are trained, and we know with internet, with lot of technology, we access and we know what is the treatment. And today it's not that difficult for even patients to know what are the protocols. And we always encourage patients. In a city like Bangalore, all the people who come are very technology savvy. They would have gone through Google, checked out Ajaikumar, checked out the center, checked out the protocols, and then only they come. So with this, it is already happening. The borders are not there, but the protocols and the violation of the protocols is the issue. What we need to do is to, you're right, standardize it, so that if there is any violation, who will question them, and all the governments have to collaborate and work. And this is the next step. Standardize it across the globe. It should happen, but first thing is, a country like India needs to standardize the care across, and look at the data where we are treating cancer, maybe other diseases in India, not just cancer, tuberculosis, so many other issues are there. Diabetes, which is going to be capital of the world, diabetes. So lot of work to be done. And what we lack in India today, honestly, is to bring about this uniformity, because people are paying out of pocket, is to bring universal health care. I have really talked a lot about it, tried to convince the government system, but we have not gotten anywhere, because people are not understanding what does quality of care mean. Cheap medicine is not quality of care. I have written, there is a cost to cheap. When you say it is very inexpensive, there is a cost to it, because you may not be getting the right. How can you say I will, per person in India, we spend $83, whereas US spends $9,400. Entire Europe spends, $5,000. How can you say 83 I'll give you, but I want the same care as 5,000 and $9,400? And that is a challenge in India, because Indian government spends 1.5% of GDP on healthcare. And so they want the same quality. That is why the private healthcare is managing 75% of healthcare in India. And people, how many people can pay from out of pocket? If somebody in ICU admission or cancer care in US costs $100,000, in India it may cost only $5,000, $10,000. But even that $10,000, which is about 5-6 lakh rupees, is difficult for somebody to come out and pay because nobody has liquid cash so much. So this is the issue, which is the burning issue in a country like India, where private insurance are only in our group, it's only like 25%. And government has put in lot of schemes and all, but they're very low paying schemes. Like you do a major esophagectomy surgery, for example, you get $300, including hospital stay, surgeon's fees, medicines, everything. That's what they pay. So who will do proper esophagectomy? All these people will cut short or not do. So, it is going to cause a lot of, an ethics issue, moral issues. So that is where, we find that a challenge. So we have proposed universal healthcare. Everybody has a cell phone, literally everybody in India. So create a cess for it. So if you have a cess phone, if you're paying a bill of 1,000 rupees, let's say $100 a year or $200 a year, add another $50, which goes for healthcare. So that way everybody is insured. And India is full of youth. 70% are in younger groups. So they are not supposed to get cancer like what happens in US Medicare. We all contributed to Medicare. Now I am a Medicare recipient because you can be. And you would have paid in your youth. That is a system we have to develop. But somehow the system in the bureaucracy are not able to initiate that. And hopefully someday they will.
You talked a little bit about your failures, and you said you lost money, I think, during the financial crisis and dot-com bust. Right now is a crisis as well globally. It's an economic crisis, not just a public health crisis. So what's your advice to our listeners who might be at home right now listening to the show? They've lost their jobs, or maybe their business is struggling. What are your tips for overcoming those issues?
I think at this point in the pandemic, and the economic issues which are affected, I think the important thing is, of course, health is very important, safety, taking the measures, work from home, whatever you can, the family and you become the most important thing. But economically, I think, conserving cash, I think, is the most important thing. At this point, we have to save. We have to be very prudent, frugal, or whatever terminology you want to use. We have to make sure that during the crisis we don't get into issue where we borrow a lot of money, get into a crisis, then we are unable to pay. So watching your finances in the right way, and that is what I learned in the bubble when I lost 22 million. I think the most important thing I had done, fortunately, was I was able to sell the house and get few million. And
that's rupees or dollars?
Dollars, $22 million I lost.
Okay.
I know you should see the graph. Month on month, it came down to $500,000. From 22 million, it came to 500 in 3 months. And
how did that, was it bad private equity deals or
no,
I can't imagine.
In the stock market at that time, I was heavily invested, and I got there's a long story. I got maybe wrong advice. Actually, I recovered some money from the one of the top financial institutions which had advised me. I had used to call them and say, look, this market is going down, maybe I should bail out. I remember at 15 million I called. He said, no, don't worry, this will bounce back, the Nasdaq will bounce back. It cannot go on. So I believed, and I had emails showing that. So I finally had to get back to them and show all that. And they gave $2.5 million back in the settlement, which happened. But but it was nothing much. But at least I got some back. But and so selling the house and doing that, I was able to get about $5-6 million back, which kind of restarted my whole journey. But the most important thing I had done was I had put aside money for my children's education in a separate fund. And I also had my philanthropic approach. I had some funds set aside, which I had not used in the stock market. So that also kind of helped me to make sure the education is not disturbed, and also some philanthropic activity I could continue while I was in this crisis. But I believe me, the crisis was so bad. I used to get up in the middle of the night with churning stomach and say, my God, what am I going to do? But it was looking back, Naresh, it was a great experience, because sometimes you can learn from others' experience, but it is better. It is obviously the best when you learn from your own experience. And failures are good. Failures can be celebrated, provided you learn from it. And that is what I felt. It was a great learning experience, costly, but great. But looking back, is it worth that what I did? Yes. And the advice to the future is, I don't think they should go through. They should understand the crisis through which some of us have gone and take some lessons out of it, and no reason to reinvent the wheel. And using that, how do you become economic areas? How do you manage your finances, your health? And most important thing is to stay healthy, make sure you can meet your ends. I have seen doctors, for example, I'll tell you, they would have bought expensive cars. They would have bought EMIs, monthly payments, and now they're stuck because they can't. They cannot pay their monthly payments, and then their income has come down. The last 6 months, everybody has been got hit almost, because there are no footfalls of patients with non-COVID patients are not coming. It is gradually picking up, but you have to manage. They write to me and say, my EMI, what am I going to do? How am I going to say? Whatever way we can help, we do. But it is something which they have to learn also. So sometimes I give them my entrepreneurial talk and say, look, I did a webinar also on that for about 8,000 doctors last month, saying that how do you manage in this crisis? How do you look at? So you have to set aside some funds and make sure that liquid funds are used during the crisis time. So these are some of the things I think, and of course the pandemic is supposed to happen once in 100 years or so, but you never know what the future is. We have bioterrorism, we have other forms of terrorism. Who knows what is going to happen? So it's important to have that kind of saving, that security, so that you don't fall into this debt trap. Particularly, your commitments to bank loans, all of that. Even in HCG, we had a commitment. We got recently a funding of $90 million, which put us in a strong position. Without that, we would also be difficult to, fulfill our obligations to the banks, loans. All of that is very important, that you manage that yin yang properly.
Let me get something straight. So I just I want to make sure I heard this correctly. You said you had $22 million and
Yeah.
it went all the way down to $600,000?
$500,000.
$500,000. Okay. So my first question, which is kind of a rhetorical question, is how do you
Yeah.
live with yourself when you see that, happen in front of your eyes? And secondly, you said it was the stock market, and this is a 2008 financial crisis,
No,
correct?
2001 bubble.
2000. So did you own a bunch of these worthless tech stocks? Is that what it was?
Yeah. At that time, it was worth like now, like, for example, Amazons are all became worthless at that time. Then, of course, it came back. You're right.
Yeah, I
Not
remember
for
Amazon, I think, hit like $1.50
yeah,
in 2001 maybe.
yeah, yeah,
And so
yeah,
for those people who got into Amazon when it was $2,
yeah.
congratulations.
And then I had margin calls, that because I was on margin, so that had the domino effect of bringing
Yeah.
down your value. Whenever there's a margin call, you have to sell. I remember at 15 million, I had a margin call. That is when I told my financial advisor, look, maybe we should just sell everything and not have any margin and get out. But he not only told me, but fortunately, he sent a mail saying, no, I will not advise on that. You should do that. Mail I had to use to recover some money. So it was kind of unbelievable for me. But anyway, it was, money comes and money goes, but it's an experience of a lifetime. And that
Oh
has
yeah.
really made me come back and take on these issues and work. And now when somebody says whether it is rural, urban, I will know what are the pain points. I understand because you've been through that. It's the roller coaster effect of it. At 22 million, I thought I can have this $3 million house, manage, still work in India. I had planned everything for my life, I thought. but everything fell apart. But yeah, I took it in a challenging way and came back. That is what makes me feel good. And my family, of course, were very, very supportive. I don't know whether my wife fully understood the magnitude because she's an artist. They are in their own world. But when I told her, I think she understood. She was very supportive. But not even once she said, what kind of a mess you have created. Nothing. She was silently supportive, and great to have a spouse, that the children like that who understand and who are my passion for coming back also, or support. That means a lot. That is very important. And on the other hand, we were very close with the brother, but when it comes to crisis, even though we thought money doesn't come in between us, first thing he said is, no, I don't know. You lost so much. How can I help you? We cannot help you, essentially. That is what was the say. It is okay. I didn't need any help, but at least words also didn't come. Again, it showed how powerful money could be in any relationship. Money is a very powerful element. We all know that it can make or break any relationship, anybody. So that is another lesson. Friendships based. I've now been to. I now assess whose friends are friendship based on money and your name, who is genuinely friends. So I don't have that many friends because I always try to have few friends who are genuine. Whether you're rich or poor, whether you are a high flyer or a coolie, the friendship should be there. Those are the type of friends you want. Not friends who are fly by night, who are there because of your wealth or your name. So that is another thing, I always reflect on, and I'm trying to write my second book on some of the things I've learned through my experience, and what is reflection and what is society, how human behavior. It's amazing, the behavior pattern of humans, psychology, in India, US, seeing the two worlds, you begin to realize that we read great philosophers. We read like Socrates, where he says, Hawaii was chosen wise man, how little you know. So true. As you age, as you understand society, or even oncology, my 45th year, I know very little of oncology, even though. So if somebody says I'm an expert in oncology, they're a fool. Nobody can be an expert. If somebody says I'm an expert in this COVID-19, they're a fool. It's a learning process. So there are so many things we begin to realize, and that is why I feel capitalism is good, but altruism is also good. How do you bridge the gap? So I am trying to coin the word capo altruism. You can be selfish and selfless. Is it possible? That is the
I love it.
ultimately what
Love it.
I'm trying to write. Maybe I'll tap to you for some of your ideas when I finish this writing. I feel you can do both. You don't have to be, only one. Don't have to be selfless completely, but you should not be obviously selfish all the time, only for yourself, but you can do both. And that is the best way, I think, going forward for any individual or even a society. A society, a country cannot be just a communist country. It doesn't work. You have to have rights, you have to have property. That is the motivation. That self, I want to make money myself. But at the same time, you cannot be completely capitalist. It's all for me only, nobody else. The whatever wealth I have, it's for me. Look at Warren Buffett or Bill Gates, how they have given billions of dollars. So you have to understand how to give also. So best of both is what I feel is the way forward, and that is what I'm trying to. I have a think tank called Antardhwani, Inner Think. That think tank, through some of the journalists, have started full time. That is where I'm moving towards, and using this knowledge and all, we want to create a think tank, put out publications. We started to look at philanthropy, because I always believe philanthropy and charity are two different things. Charity is something you do because you see somebody poor, you give them food, or somebody, you give them some dollars, or start a school, is charity because you want to do something. But philanthropy is different. Philanthropy is identify the social issues, why that person is poor, and what can I do to improve the society though such poverty doesn't exist. So it's a social structural change, and that is philanthropy, and that is what we have to attack and make government responsible for it. We can't do government job. That is what I say. When people come and say, I am this philanthropy work, I'm doing this healthcare or something else related to empowerment program, whatever I have done is a pilot project, but is it going to make a national change? No. So you have to really go after structural change and educate, create leaders, have multiplier effect, question the government. That is what we do. We have what we call as RTIs, we file, and we started doing it in a small way, but I want to really expand. I'm trying to create a corpus fund for that. Initially put about 100 crores or so, and using that develop a system. That is my future, Naresh. I hope I will succeed.
What are your big concerns as we go into the lockdowns and we start doing the work from home movements? Kind of with what you've seen from your patients and all the people you've treated, what kind of concerns should people have about working from home and making sure they're still doing the things that they need to do to avoid, any negative health consequences, whether that's cancer related or just health related?
No, it's a good question. I call it the collateral damage. Because of the fear of the COVID, people are not coming out. And maybe if they have a chest pain or even a growth in the breast or lump in the neck, they're not coming at early stage because they fear they'll get COVID. And even doctors, we have had a lot of doctors who had COVID, and a lot of India doctors shut down their clinics afraid of being exposed to COVID. So this has really caused disruption. Apart from economic disruption, obviously there, the disruption is quite significant. And in future, the issue we'll see in the next year or so is, one, erosion of their economics, which will cause whether they can afford proper healthcare. That itself can become an issue, because in India, particularly the cash paying patients, can they pay? Even in US, they have some of them have to pay part of the insurance. Can they do? So this kind of, because, the poverty level will definitely increase for a time being. And this will have consequences, in my view, for the next 5 to 10 years, because significant erosion has happened. And this will definitely affect not only the rural India, but also the education and health. So people will not come forward. So the question is, will we go backward by a decade? And that is what I am concerned personally. We may go backward with all the advances we have made. While work from home, technology will prosper. Obviously, cell phones, smartphones, all of them will be used extensively. We'll use Amazon's, Prime or Netflix. All of that will be there. But overall progress may get in healthcare, education, online education, of course, is going on. How good it is going to be, we don't know the answer set. So, but healthcare, I am worried. I think we will go backwards for a few years.
Great. Well, Dr.
And the big question is, did we do a right thing in doing this lockdown? I don't know that answer. Only history, prostate will teach us whether we did the right thing or not. Okay.
Well, Dr. B.S. Ajaikumar, thanks so much for coming on the Work From Home show. You're the chairman and CEO of Healthcare Global Enterprises and author of the best-selling book, Excellence Has No Borders, How a Doctorpreneur Created a World-Class Cancer Hospital Chain. The website is www.hcgel.com. HCGEL.com and also HCGoncology.com. That's HCGoncology.com. Dr. Ajaikumar, do you have any final thoughts that you want to share with our listeners or anything else you want to promote?
No, I think if the reading the book is written in very simple language, and I thought I should connect to the reader, experience my own journey. Some of it is, people thought it's very personal, but I think in a very honest, transparent way, it's very important, I thought, to share my journey. So people who read get that message across that nothing is not doable. Everything can be done. Challenges are good in life. Like I always say, without unhappiness, where is happiness? You have to experience both. So challenges are there for you to achieve. Even if you don't achieve your goal, even if you don't climb the Mount Everest, it is how high you go is what matters in return. So for me, the message I want to send is through this book is do not be a very positive person. I always look upon glass as half full. And essentially, if you look upon it like that, you can achieve anything in life and reflect on your actions. Your own conscience is your keeper. So these are the two important messages I want to say.
Excellent. Well, again, Dr. B.S. Ajaikumar, we really greatly appreciate you coming on our show, the Work From Home show from India. So you have been our, I guess, farthest guest who we've had on our show. Really, really great interview. And so, to all our listeners, if you liked this interview or any of our previous interviews, please leave us a review on iTunes or TuneIn or whatever podcasting platform you use. Leave us a review, take a screenshot of it, and send it to us at hello@workfromhomeshow.com. That's hello@workfromhomeshow.com. We'll send you something nice and free. And get on our mailing list at workfromhomeshow.com. That's workfromhomeshow.com. You can check out all of our previous episodes. We now have over 100, so a lot of content that you can catch up on at workfromhomeshow.com. And until next time, keep on working from home.